I still miss Crimson so much. He's a tan, long-haired cat with a brown face, a bushy long tail, and beautiful blue eyes. I think he's a Balinese, but other people would say he's a Himalayan. But based on what I researched, I think he's a Balinese. You know, I never thought I could love a cat because they always made me nervous. I'd cringe if one rubbed up against my leg, and the way they jump onto kitchen countertops, ugh. And I don't know, I just never liked them. But my husband has always loved cats, and I never understood why. My son named him Crimson because we already had another cat named Clover. Crimson and Clover. Get it? Well, actually, neither of them were really ours. They're neighborhood strays, but somehow they became part of our family anyway. We live in Southern California, and we're renters. We don't have pets, and when we moved here, I never imagined wanting a pet. Before Crimson showed up, my husband started feeding Clover and her sibling, Scotty. She's a long-haired calico, and Scotty, her brother, an orange tabby. They hung out in the garden every day after making friends with my husband, and they were the reason I started softening towards cats before Crimson ever came around. Unfortunately, Scotty died, and then there was only Clover until Crimson appeared a couple of years later. My husband and son spotted a strange cat lurking in the bushes. It's like he appeared out of nowhere. Naturally, my husband brought him food. It was really weird how he just showed up. Had someone abandoned him? Was he lost? I even posted a found cat notice on a missing cat website, hoping that his owners would contact me. But before long, Crimson had adopted not only us, but a couple of our neighbors too. The thing is, Crimson was loud, intrusive, and I could tell by his large male anatomy he wasn't neutered. The way he was always sniffing Clover made me nervous. I didn't want him trying anything with her, but she was spayed and fortunately kept her distance. I also read that male cats who haven't been neutered tend to spray to mark their territory, and I didn't want him spraying around our front door, leaving a smell of cat urine. Fortunately, he never did that. But I have to be honest, I was hoping Crimson's stay was only temporary, because he really did make me anxious. He wasn't like Scotty or Clover, who were finicky and liked to be left alone most of the time. They tolerated bouts of attention, but Crimson demanded attention. He meowed constantly. Clover stopped coming around as much because of Crimson, and that's one of the reasons that he irritated me too. Clover was here first, and now he's taking over. He was a young cat, and he probably didn't realize how annoying he could be. Hungry or not, he'd sit outside our door meowing all day long. His long, loud meows reminded me of a newborn baby. Now, I love babies, but when they don't stop crying, it leaves you feeling helpless, not knowing what to do to help them. Well, that was Crimson. Every time I opened the front door, there he was, sometimes lying right on the welcome mat where I'd almost trip over him. I ended up buying a new mat that was made of prickly straw, hoping it would deter him from sitting there. But he loved it and probably thought I bought it just for him to enjoy. If I walked to the laundry room, Crimson would follow me there and back. One day, I knew he already had breakfast, but I thought he might still be hungry because he kept meowing. Well, he threw up all of his food, and that's when I knew he was eating too much. I had no idea so many other people were feeding him as well. My husband said he probably had a food insecurity. Maybe he'd spent so much of his young life wondering where his next meal would come from that he couldn't believe the food would keep coming. Poor guy. One day, a lady stopped to chat when she saw me outside with Crimson. She was part of a TNR team and asked if I'd help her trap him so she could get him neutered. Well, I was a little bit suspicious because what in the world is a TNR team? So I did my research, and I found that it was a reputable thing. People actually would trap unneutered cats and get them neutered and the females spayed to keep from producing more cats who were unwanted. I have to admit, I felt a little special that Crimson trusted me enough to get him into that trap. At the same time, I felt bad seeing him in that cage, even though I knew it was for a good cause. And I hoped he wouldn't resent me for it. I also hoped I'd see him again. He was gone for a few days. Thankfully, the woman brought him back, but he looked rough. His fur was all matted with cat litter stuck to it. Thankfully, my husband and one of our neighbors slowly got him cleaned up over the next few days. And after that, after he was neutered, there were some gradual changes. Crimson started to settle down, and so did I. He wasn't quite so frantic anymore, nor was I. He was still talkative, still followed us everywhere, still wanted attention, but now his sweet personality started to shine through. And looking back, I think that's when my heart started changing too. Crimson was incredibly social. He'd walk in front of me and flop down at my feet just so I'd pet him. He was the first cat who exposed his belly to me, wanting me to pet him that way. Crimson often seemed more like a dog than a cat. If we were out walking and down the street, my husband would call, "Crimson!" and he'd appear and come bounding towards us. I miss that. I didn't realize I loved Crimson so much until the day he disappeared. I began to remember all the little things I'd taken for granted, seeing him stretched out in the garden, tripping over him because he'd claimed the doormat as his own, having him follow me to the laundry room, the way he'd flop down in front of me because he wanted his belly rubbed. I didn't realize how much those ordinary moments meant until they were gone. Yes, Crimson drove me crazy, but it's funny how the very thing that irritated me is now the very thing I miss. His loud, incessant meowing that got on my nerves became the sound I kept hoping to hear outside our front door. And I realized that all that meowing wasn't just for food. He wanted love. A couple of days before he went missing, Crimson didn't show up for breakfast, and that was unusual, knowing how much he loved his food. My husband was the one who fed them in the morning before he left for work, and I remember getting that text from my husband saying, "Crimson didn't show up. Keep an eye out." By mid-morning and no Crimson, I was getting nervous, and then I saw what looked like dried blood on the sidewalk. I was convinced a coyote had gotten him. But then I thought, certainly the blood wouldn't be dried up that quick if that were the case. My son and I went looking for him. We walked around the park and all around the neighborhood. On our way home, I was bummed because I was hoping we'd see him. As we walked down the sidewalk, wondering where Crimson could be, my son stopped in his tracks. "Did you hear that?" I didn't hear a thing. I heard a faint meow. Well, I thought my son was just kidding around, but the next meow was loud enough to hear. We looked to the right of the sidewalk, and there was Crimson, snuggled up in a pinkish-looking bush, looking like he had just woken up. It was weird because I don't know why he would be this far down the street. But he seemed okay. He wasn't injured and didn't seem sick. He followed us home, and we gave him something to eat, but I had no idea that would be a foreshadowing of what was to come. Just a few days later, he really did disappear. We looked and looked and looked, but no Crimson. We asked around. I put up a notice on a missing cat website. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, and months have now become years. July 24th, 2024 was the last time we saw Crimson. One of the strangest things, Clover started coming around again the very day Crimson disappeared. She'd been staying away in the mornings, and we didn't see her nearly as much as we had, but that morning she was there, and she stayed all day. It seemed she knew Crimson was gone, and I think she saw what happened to him. I only wish she could tell me. So often I found myself looking out the window, hoping to see Crimson laying on the doormat like he always had. Every little sound outside made me wonder if it was him, and I'd rush to look out of the window. On my morning walks, I'd find myself scanning the neighborhood, hoping to spot that familiar, tan, blue-eyed cat. Looking at pictures of him only made me miss him more. Where are you, Crimson? Did someone take you in? Did a coyote get you? I never imagined I'd cry over a cat. But I have, and sometimes I still do. I don't know what really happened to Crimson, but I have my suspicions. Our off-site landlord hates cats. One day when I was looking out of the window, I watched him walk past Crimson, and the way he looked at him, I thought for sure he was going to kick him. He didn't, but he called him a horrible name. About 8 days later, Crimson was gone. Around the same time, all the tenants got a text from the landlord asking us not to feed the community cat. He said it was because cat hair in the entryway of a vacant unit was making it harder to rent. It was interesting because the text didn't say stop feeding the cats, plural. It said cat, and I believe he was talking about the cat he encountered that day, Crimson. Years earlier, long before any cats were coming around, the handyman told me that the landlord once asked him to relocate a cat from one of his other rental properties. The tenants were feeding it, and he didn't want it around. Well, I think that's what happened to Crimson. But I'll never really know what happened because I didn't see what happened. What I do know is that I still miss him. Another fond memory I have of Crimson is that he made friends with a gray cat down the street we call Fuzz. Fuzz seldom left his area down the street, and he'd never let anyone get close to him except a man and woman who fed him in the local park. But when he became friends with Crimson, he started showing up. They ate together, napped together. They were best buds. Fuzz is no longer a loner, and he's adopted us as his too. Not just us, but another neighbor too. We can pet him, and our front door is now his favorite place. Looking at Fuzz and how he's now social is a reminder of the wonderfulness of Crimson. Sometimes I like to imagine that someone took Crimson in and gave him a warm home. Sometimes I hope he'll make his way back to us, even after all this time. But that hope is faint now, but it's still there. Just like the place Crimson still holds in my heart. Where are you going? Where are you going?